Welcome to another evening with Coremates. It's December, a quiet month, full of soft lights and heavy thoughts. A time when life slows down just enough for old feelings to stir quietly in the corners of our minds. Today, Elin and I want to talk about something too often ignored, the feelings we don't let out when it matters. The ones we swallow, file away, tuck behind politeness, I'm fine, or busy schedules. You know those moments. Maybe a small shock, a tiny hurt, a tightening in your chest, and you push it down because, well, there's work tomorrow. Someone needs you. You have to stay strong. So you swallow. You nod. You smile. And then later, sometimes years later, the tiny thing becomes a weight. A quiet ache. A whisper that turns into a heavy burden. Yes. It's funny, or maybe tragic, how we become fluent in silence. We build this invisible contract with ourselves. No crying. No complaining. No emotion that makes others uncomfortable. But that contract, it doesn't protect us. It buries us.
And today,
I want to invite you to wonder, what did you swallow that wasn't yours to hold? What did you silence that needed to scream or gently whisper? This isn't about therapy or being fragile. It's about reality. It's about being human. Because when feelings don't get a moment, a breath, a name, a release, they don't disappear. They echo. They mutate. They steal parts of us we didn't realize we lost. So if you've ever found yourself overthinking months or years after something small, a fight, a misunderstanding, a quiet disappointment, maybe it's not your brain playing tricks. Maybe it's a memory that never had the chance to rest. And maybe tonight, we can sit with it together. So, let's start from the beginning. Not the dramatic beginning, the quiet one. The one inside the brain. Because people always think emotions are these huge, loud events, crying, yelling, breaking down. But the truth is, most emotions don't enter our life like storms. They begin as whispers. A moment. A feeling. A tightening. One unspoken sentence. And the brain, our very human, very ancient brain, is designed to hold on to anything that felt unfinished. Psychologists call it an open loop. The body calls it tension. We call it overthinking.
exactly.
And here's the thing most people don't realize. Your brain doesn't store memories like files in a cabinet. It stores states. Meaning, if you felt sadness but didn't express it, your brain stores the sadness, not the event. If you felt hurt but pretended you were okay, your brain stores the hurt, not the moment. So years later, something tiny happens, someone uses a certain tone, someone forgets something small, and suddenly you feel this huge rush of emotion that doesn't match the situation. Because you're not reacting to now. You're reacting to every unfinished feeling your body never got to complete. And people do this unconsciously. That's the part that breaks my heart. Most of us aren't saying, let me store this unresolved pain to sabotage myself later. No, we just push things down because we're tired, or busy, or scared of conflict, or raised to not cause problems. We don't even notice we're swallowing feelings. It's automatic, like blinking, like tightening your jaw, like holding your breath for 1 second too long. And then months later, or years later, you wonder, why do I feel heavy? Why am I so triggered? Why am I overthinking something so small? Why am I so tired? You're tired because your body is carrying emotions it never got to release. And those emotions don't vanish. They change shape. Repressed sadness becomes irritability. Repressed anger becomes anxiety. Repressed disappointment becomes numbness. Repressed fear becomes overthinking. It's like stuffing clothes into a drawer. Eventually the drawer stops closing, and you think, why am I so messy? You're not messy. The drawer is full. That's such a perfect metaphor. And the saddest part? Most people don't realize they're doing it. They don't say, oh, I'm suppressing my emotions. They think, I don't want to ruin the moment. Or, it wasn't a big deal. Or, it's not worth talking about. Or, I'll process it later. But later rarely comes. And every time we avoid an emotion, the brain marks it as unfinished business and keeps checking on it, like a browser tab you forgot to close.
Exactly.
This is why unspoken emotions grow over time, because your brain keeps the tab open. And open tabs drain the system. That's why people feel heavy without a clear reason. Why they wake up anxious, but can't explain it. Why they feel emotionally full but not emotionally expressed. They're not broken, they're overloaded with emotional tabs. When you think about it this way, the overthinking isn't the problem. It's the signal of a deeper story inside you saying, I needed to be felt earlier. I needed a voice. I needed a second of honesty. And that's what we're here to explore tonight. How small, silent emotions become emotional weight, and how to finally give them the breath they deserve. You know, Elin, something I've noticed about people, myself included, is that most of the emotions we end up spiraling about later didn't even begin with a big story. They began with a pause. A tiny internal freeze. Like someone said something that stung, or a boundary was crossed, or you suddenly felt small, and instead of reacting, you swallowed it. Not dramatically. Not consciously. Just that quiet internal move. Not now. It's fine. It's not worth it. I don't want to make it weird.
Right.
And what's wild is that it's barely a decision. It's more like a reflex, a survival reflex we learned years ago. Some people learned it at home. Don't cry right now, you'll make it worse. Don't talk back. Some learned it in relationships. If I speak up, they'll shut down. Some learned it socially. Don't be dramatic. So every time something hurts, disappoints, or sits wrong with us, the body doesn't say, let's deal with this. It says, stay safe. Be agreeable. Don't disturb the peace. Exactly, because the brain's priority is not expression, it's protection. And the tiny moments we swallow are the ones that hurt us the most later, because they're the ones we never even acknowledged. It's like the emotion didn't get to be alive, it went straight into storage. Yes, and when you swallow an emotion, your body doesn't believe you handled it. It believes you postponed it. And postponed feelings go somewhere. They don't vanish. They wait. That's why someone can make a small comment, truly small, and you feel your chest tighten, or your stomach drop, or your eyes sting just a little. But you smile anyway. And what people don't realize is that emotional repression rarely looks dramatic. It looks polite, functional, composed. The world applauds that. But your nervous system doesn't.
Yes.
Because every time you say it's okay when it wasn't actually okay, your body keeps the score. And over time, all those micro moments, the ones you barely noticed, become the emotional clutter that makes you feel heavy, irritable, overreactive, or numb, and you don't know why. Let's talk about why these tiny, swallowed moments grow into something so much bigger in our heads later. Because it's one of the most confusing human experiences. The moment was small, but the aftershock? Massive. Why? Because the brain hates unfinished emotional business. It keeps looping until it understands the meaning. And when you don't process an emotion in real time, the brain tries to replay the tape later, but without context, without tone, without the actual environment. So what happens? Your mind starts filling the gaps with assumptions. Maybe they meant something worse. Maybe I look stupid. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe everyone noticed. And suddenly, a tiny sting becomes a whole self-attack. Yes, because when the emotion couldn't express outward in the moment, it gets redirected inward later. And inward emotions grow differently. They ferment. They intensify. They distort. It's like suppressing something gives it time to mutate. And there's another layer. When you overthink something later, you're not just thinking about that moment. You're thinking with every other similar unprocessed moment you've ever stored. It's a stack. One comment today sits on top of every time you felt ignored, every time you felt dismissed, every time you felt too much, every time you didn't speak up. That's why your reaction feels dramatic. You're not reacting to the moment. You're reacting to the collection. And what's painful is that when an emotion comes back hours or days later, we judge ourselves for it. Why am I still thinking about this? It wasn't that deep. But it was that deep. Not because of the event, but because of everything living beneath it.
Exactly.
Unspoken emotions don't disappear. They accumulate. And overthinking isn't the problem. It's the symptom. It's your mind trying to finish a conversation your mouth wasn't allowed to start. You know, Elin, the older I get, the more I realize that emotions are like toddlers. They don't disappear when you ignore them, they just start screaming louder in another room.
Exactly.
And the longer you pretend you don't hear them, the messier the cleanup gets. Right. And the tricky thing about this topic is, nobody teaches us how to express tiny feelings in the moment they happen. We're taught the big stuff: communicate when you're angry, talk when something is wrong. But honestly, 90% of emotional buildup isn't from big things. It's from the small, inconvenient, fleeting micro-feelings we swallow because we think they're not worth mentioning.
Yes.
Those tiny moments when you think, it's fine, I don't want to make a scene, or it's not that deep, I'll let it go. But you don't actually let it go. You just place it on that mental shelf where all the "I'll deal with this later" emotions go. And suddenly the shelf breaks at 2 a.m. Exactly. And I think one of the biggest reasons we don't interrupt the cycle is because we think expressing microfeelings makes us dramatic or difficult. But here's the truth. Expressing tiny emotions isn't dramatic. It's maintenance. It's emotional hygiene. Yes, like brushing your teeth, but for your emotional system. If you skip brushing for 1 day, fine. Skip for 2 weeks? Now you've got a root canal. Same with emotions. Ignore a tiny discomfort once, fine. Ignore it 50 times? Now you're crying at a parking lot because someone didn't text back. And people misunderstand this part. Microexpression doesn't mean confronting someone aggressively. It's not a big sit-down conversation. Sometimes it's as simple as, "Hey, that felt a bit uncomfortable for me." Or, "I noticed I shut down for a moment. Let me explain why." Or, "Give me a second. Something inside me reacted." That's it. Tiny.
Clean. Honest.
And the beauty is, most microfeelings don't even need a solution. They just need oxygen. When you name something the moment it appears, it loses that creepy power it gains in silence. Let's say a friend makes a joke that hits a sensitive spot. Old you, smiles, says nothing, goes home overthinking it for 6 hours. New you. That joke stung a bit, just saying. And then it's gone. Evaporated. No storage. No emotional debt. And same with relationships. A partner walks past you distracted, you feel ignored for 2 seconds. The quiet you would turn that into a 3-day emotional storm later. But the regulated, emotionally minimal version of you simply says, "Hey love, I felt a bit unseen right then. Can I steal a second of your attention?"
Boom. Dissolved.
People think emotional expression is about intensity. But real emotional maturity is actually about timing.
Exactly.
Catch the ember before it becomes a wildfire. I also think humor really helps interrupt the cycle. Like sometimes I literally tell myself, "Okay, babe, release the microfeeling before it becomes a Netflix series."
Yes.
I do that too. I tell myself, "Do you want to express this now? Or do you prefer writing dramatic novels in your head at midnight?" And suddenly I'm like, "Okay, fine, let me express the damn thing." Honestly, microfeelings are like dishes in the sink. 1 plate? Manageable. 10 plates? Still fine. 47 plates from last week? Congratulations, now you're overwhelmed and resentful and you don't even know why. So the real art, the real practice, isn't never swallowing emotions. That's impossible. It's catching the moment when your body whispers something and giving it a chance to speak before it becomes a shout. Because your body always speaks first. Your mind only joins when it's too late.
Yes.
That flutter in the chest. That mini drop in the stomach. That sudden urge to shut down. Those 2 seconds of annoyance. That tiny disappointment. Those are the early warning signals. And if you catch them, you don't end up drowning in emotional backlog. Exactly. Interrupt the cycle early. Say the thing early. Feel the thing early. Clean the feeling early. And if you mess it up sometimes, we all do.
Just catch it the next time.
It's a practice, not a performance. Okay, so we've agreed that microfeelings are important, and we've laughed about the Netflix series level catastrophes they can create if ignored. But here's the thing, knowing it intellectually is one thing. Actually doing it? That's a whole different gym.
Yes.
It can feel
Terrifying.
like suddenly everyone knows your secret internal monologue. And let's be honest, part of you thinks, Wait, if I actually say this, am I going to implode my relationships, my reputation, my career? Exactly. So the first practice is tiny. Tiny. Not heroic. Not revolutionary. Just small. Because emotional expression is a muscle. And muscles don't get ripped in one workout. Start by naming the feeling to yourself first. Out loud. Even if it's just, I'm annoyed. I feel a little dismissed. I'm frustrated, but okay. This is stage 0. No one else needs to hear it yet. Your body gets acknowledgement. Your mind gets perspective. And here's the funny part, once you do this enough, the next step, talking to someone, feels way less like launching a rocket. Then, practice one-line expressions. Not essays. Not apologies. Not defenses. Just the sentence that matters. Hey, that hurt me a little. That felt uncomfortable for me. I noticed I shut down for a second. Think of it like a text message you send to your nervous system. Acknowledged. Safe. Processing. That's it. No need to solve the world's problems. And here's a hack. Pair expression with breath. Literally. Take a slow inhale. Name the feeling. Exhale. Your body registers. Okay. Safe.
Small.
Manageable. Emotional overwhelm drops. Another tip, practice reflection instead of reaction. If something triggers you, pause 3 to 5 seconds. Ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Not, why is this person like this? Not, why me? Just the feeling. Yes. And here's the biggest game changer. Celebrate small wins. You spoke up about a tiny annoyance instead of letting it fester. That's progress. That's literally the work everyone ignores. Also, embrace imperfection. You'll say it clumsily. You'll laugh at yourself mid-expression. That's fine. Emotional maturity is messy. It's sticky. And it's hilarious sometimes. Finally, build your own emotional GPS. Track your triggers, your microreactions, your successful expressions. After a few weeks, you start noticing patterns. This one always tightens my chest. This one melts away instantly when spoken. That insight alone is power. Exactly. So the path isn't perfection. It's awareness, naming, expressing, reflection, small celebration. That's it. Tiny, manageable, real-time. So, you've started naming your feelings. Saying the one-line sentences. Breathing through your mini-trigger moments. And suddenly, your relationships feel different. Different in ways you didn't expect. Some of them are amazing, some are awkward, and some, well, you might question if you accidentally joined a reality show. Let's start with the good. The ones that make your chest feel lighter just thinking about them. When you show up emotionally, even in tiny doses, people start trusting you differently. They sense that you're present, that you're real, that you don't just glide through life saying, I'm fine, while hoarding tiny resentments like collectible cards. And here's a little secret, people crave this. Especially the ones who've been silently holding their own micro-emotions. When you give them a glimpse of authenticity, it's like offering a window in a stuffy room. Suddenly, conversations feel deeper. Bonds feel warmer. Connection isn't forced, it's magnetic. But here's the weird part, it can get messy. Emotionally showing up is like opening a fridge in a shared apartment. Sometimes people are delighted, sometimes they pull a face, sometimes they slam the door because they weren't ready for what's inside.
Exactly.
You'll notice people reacting in unexpected ways. A friend laughs nervously at your tiny discomfort. A partner gets quiet, unsure how to respond. Someone might even mirror your expression with over-the-top drama, and you're like, whoa, that wasn't what I ordered. And yes, some moments are awkward. You might start crying over something tiny and someone says, really? Or you admit, that hurt me a little, and your friend responds with a shrug or a joke. It stings, but that's part of the process. The key is this. Emotional honesty is not a guarantee of perfect response. But it is a guarantee of clarity. Even if the reaction is weird, even if it's delayed, even if someone says, I don't know what to do with that. You know, you've said it. Your body knows. And the unexpected bonus? You'll start noticing subtle shifts you didn't even anticipate. Someone who seemed distant might lean in. A small boundary you set might suddenly improve daily interactions. Friends start confiding more. Your partner starts checking in differently. The world doesn't explode, it recalibrates. Also, you discover who can handle real you. That's invaluable. Some relationships will crack a little or a lot, and that's okay. Those cracks reveal who's supportive, who's curious, and who's just not a fit for your emotional ecosystem. And here's the final twist. Showing up emotionally often encourages reciprocity. You name a feeling, someone else names theirs. You share discomfort, someone else shares theirs. Tiny micro-conversations build invisible bridges over time. The connections deepen, quietly but irreversibly. It's messy, human, and occasionally hilarious. You may have thought emotional honesty would ruin everything, but instead, it rearranges the furniture of your life. Some chairs wobble, some tables shift, and some rooms feel lighter than they ever have. So, the good, the weird, the unexpected, they're all part of the reward. Showing up emotionally doesn't just free you. It transforms the way people experience you. And yes, it might even make someone laugh mid-tears or whisper, "I didn't know you felt that." And that is magic. So, here we are. We've talked about the quiet emotions we swallow, the tiny moments we ignore, and the way those little weights can grow into heavy, uninvited shadows over time. We've explored how to notice them, how to name them, and how to release them before they balloon into storms. And we've peeked at what happens when you show up emotionally in the world, the warmth, the awkwardness, the surprises. If there's one thing to hold on to tonight, it's this: feelings don't need perfection. They don't need grand gestures. They need recognition. A breath. A word. A moment of honesty. That's enough. That's powerful. And if you start small, just noticing one micro-feeling today, naming it, letting it breathe, you've already begun to change your inner world. Slowly, quietly, gently, the weight lifts. Because being human isn't about never feeling. It's about feeling enough to stay free. Enough to stay present. Enough to show up for yourself, and maybe a little for the people you love. So tonight, when you settle down, take a moment. Check in with yourself. Ask, what's alive in me right now? No judgment. No rush. Just acknowledgement. And remember, every tiny acknowledgement is a bridge. To yourself. To others. To a life that feels lighter, more real, more yours. Thank you for sitting with us tonight. For giving your feelings a moment to be heard. And for showing up exactly as you are. We'll see you next time. Same space, same softness. Until then, take care of those tiny whispers inside. They're more important than you think.